Hey, all right, so I'm about to jump in the truck. I'm heading north. Steve Patten, Convention of States Action here in Maryland. Really excited about a little trip I'm about to take. I'm going north. I'm a Marylander. I'm actually Carroll County Marylander, which is kind of like just south of Hanover, Pennsylvania, not far from Gettysburg. Some history always around. Really excited. I'm about to drive up to New York, probably 4 hours. I'm going to somewhere in New York that I'm from. I'm actually a Long Islander originally. I was but raised on Long Island, and never knew about the Maryland 400. Going to do a little exploring and a little information, a little fact finding about the Maryland 400. It's very early on Friday, October 1st. I'm really excited. I am driving probably 4 hours to share something with you and do something for myself that I've been curious about now for a very long time. I'll be checking in. Thanks. See you shortly. Hey, check in. Still headed up to Brooklyn. Hint, hint. Just stopped at the very last rest stop off 95 here in Maryland. Going to just grab myself some coffee. Still about 2.5, 3 hours away from my destination. I am headed to Brooklyn, and I am going to find out some information, I hope, about what exactly Marylanders did on Long Island. Hint, hint, Revolutionary time period, Battle of Long Island, Battle of Brooklyn. Another check-in in a little bit. Hey, I'm in New Jersey. I'm on my way. I'm very close to crossing over the East River. Hint, hint, another hint. East River, where George Washington was able to escape after the Battle of Brooklyn, or the Battle of Long Island, depending on what history you're reading. So I am really close. Sun is coming up. Little old Maryland Steve is now back. Well, I'm in New Jersey. I'm not back in New York yet, but I am darn close. Headed to something I'm really excited to share, and I will check in again shortly. So I'm here. I just drove from Maryland to Brooklyn, New York, Long Island, the Battle of Long Island, the Battle of Brooklyn as it's known. For those of you who are semi-familiar with it, it is the very first large-scale battle. The British wanted to snuff out the Americans as quickly as possible. This whole uprising, as they termed it, as the Brits termed it, the Americans on August 27th is when this Battle of Brooklyn happened, of 1776, so it's just very shortly after the Declaration of Independence. The fear was that George Washington was going to be cornered. 450 ships from England had arrived after the Declaration of Independence. 10,000 men, 10,000 British soldiers, well-trained soldiers, had landed on Long Island. 450 ships, a lot of frigates, not huge battleships, a lot of frigates, had surrounded Long Island, and they knew that George Washington and what was the Continental Army was amassed in Brooklyn, and there was going to be a battle. And that battle, for those of you who don't know, was a disaster for the Americans, but it made the Maryland 400 famous. And I recently learned about the Maryland 400, and me being a Marylander and also a Long Islander, I decided I needed to find out. So I just drove all the way up here to Brooklyn. I am going to go find this monument. and I will discuss more once I find the monument to the Maryland 400. So I'm walking around Prospect Park here in Brooklyn, very beautiful day, and I'm looking for this monument to the Maryland 400. So I'll check in again shortly, hopefully at the monument. I still have not found the Maryland monument. Evidently Prospect Park's kind of big. I am in search, so I don't think I'm far. I just saw a map. So anyway, just to continue my conversation about the Maryland 400. So the Battle of Brooklyn, or the Battle of Long Island, was August 27th, 1776. The British wanted to stop what was happening here in the colonies as quickly as possible. And they knew that George Washington and the majority of his Continental Army was here on Long Island. They knew they were outnumbered. Some say it was 10-1, some say it was 6-1, some say it was 4-1. But the Americans were outnumbered. General Washington only had he had two options. He could stay and fight, potentially lose the entire Continental Army, potentially be captured, and obviously, what would happen after that, and we'd lose our leader. But most importantly, what he was worried about was losing the actual Continental Army. And the other option was to escape. The problem was they only had so many boats to cross the East River, which is the tiny little body of water that separates Long Island from the rest of the Continental. It's actually New Jersey. It's not New York. New York is north of the crossing at the East River. And that's where he would have to get them out. He had a limited number of boats for his intelligence to get the army off, and he presented this to his generals. And so the First Maryland Regiment said, "You know what? We'll make a stand. We'll make a stand, and we'll actually attack, and hopefully catch the British off guard and buy you enough time to get the majority of the Continental Army off the island." And they were decimated. It's a story of bravery, and I think about not being a veteran or a military man myself. I think about the men who joined. They joined for something that didn't exist yet, a country, an idea that didn't even exist, and they joined for that. And from what I've read, the stories of what happened to the Maryland 400, they charged 6 times into, whether they were outnumbered 3-1, 6-1, 10-1, whatever the numbers are that you read, they were definitely outnumbered, and they attacked. And the British didn't know what was going on, and they bought enough time for Washington to get the majority of the Continental Army off of Long Island and to safety. And that in itself is just remarkable. And I know I'm not a military man, but gosh, do I respect that. Oh, I think I found it. That's it right there. I'm gonna go up there. It's kind of tucked in a corner. So of the men that were decimated, some say it was 200, some say it was all 400. Some did survive. They think some got captured, but they still are searching for the grave. Wow. So, the Maryland 400 monument here in Brooklyn, New York, kind of sits here atop a hill in Brooklyn Heights. More emotional than I thought. I guess what I'm doing here is realizing that there's a greater cause, and we who feel that calling act upon it. And those Maryland 400, if they hadn't stood for something on ground that was not theirs here in New York, and at the time there was not a unified country, we were 13 separate colonies fighting for the right to be free. They didn't know if there was going to be a unified government. There was no talk of a Constitution or Articles of Confederation yet. They were just fighting to be free men, their families free. And they were up here in New York, and they answered the call. They held the line. I'm a Convention of States volunteer. I'm trying to do my little part, something on a national level that the founders, the framers were smart enough to put in our Constitution to act through our General Assembly of our state to enact change in case the federal government became tyrannical and got out of control. And I find it very inspiring being from Maryland and at this monument in New York, far from Maryland, that a handful, not much more than a handful, of men, boys, found it important enough to lay their lives down. Kind of makes what I'm doing for Convention of States seem very small. But because of what they did, the document that was drawn allows us to not have to pick up arms to make changes. Hey, Steve Patten again, Convention of States here. Found my truck. A bit of a walk through the park again in Brooklyn, New York, visiting the Maryland 400 monument. Found it to be more emotional than expected. I'm about to leave Brooklyn, New York here. I just tried to go get a bite to eat. The Marxists here would not let me actually in to any bars or restaurants without my papers. They wanted a vaccination card to even let me get through the door. Doesn't seem insane to anyone else. All right. Thank you for joining me on this adventure. I am really glad I did this, and I think maybe we get the Convention of States Maryland team to come up here and maybe dress up that monument to Maryland, do a little weeding, a little polishing. God bless America.